Hello everyone. Over the past few months, there's been a lot of progress in the construction of the Metro Tunnel, as well as insights as to how it will fit into the broader public transport network once it opens. We begin this video here at the Eastern Tunnel entrance at South Yarra, which has officially been completed. Those of you who saw the last update or have been past here may notice that nothing has really changed for a while here. That's because the decline structure itself has been finished for quite a while now, with test trains operating all the way through the tunnel. The rest of this video will show you around the 7 main construction sites, being the 5 new stations and the 2 entrances. Major construction has finished now at 4 of these sites, according to the Big Build website. The government has spruiked this in a way that implies they are finished, although as you will see, there is still a lot of work to do at some of these allegedly completed sites. Nevertheless, construction is definitely on the home stretch now. Here's the same entrance at South Yarra, this time from an East Pakenham bound train. I'll have some more to say about that grey wall on the right, or specifically the park above it, very soon. For those who missed it, the Pakenham line is, well, still called the Pakenham line, but now goes 1 station further to East Pakenham. This was done to alleviate the congestion associated with V-line trains needing to move past terminating metro trains at Pakenham Station, which was very difficult given Pakenham only had 2 platforms and no express tracks. East Pakenham has 2 express tracks, which greatly simplifies this manoeuvre and reduces delays, particularly for Gippsland line trains. Back to that grey wall from before, which you can now see in the centre of the video. This is the South Yarra Siding Reserve, which was previously a fairly plain park backing onto the former siding, being that underutilised railway land to the right. The Metro Tunnel needed to expand the rail corridor to fit in the declined structure. I'm not certain that they exclusively use that old railway land, but more or less, the old siding is now the up and down Frankston lines. The reserve hasn't exactly shrunken from the public's perspective by the looks, as it seems like just as much of it is left as was publicly accessible before. Anyway, the locals have been rewarded for their years of patience with a very nicely refurbished park. It has plenty of open grass, interesting legacy art pieces, lovely gardens and sheltered tables, although it could do with a barbecue. But what is this road for near the entrance? This leads down to the substation, which was very cleverly hidden beneath the park, unlike many other substations around the network, which can be eyesores. The park also has this narrower bit at the end, which is quite a cool spot for train and tram spotting. This extrapolis train is an unusual sight, as it is on the down Dandenong line track, a line that it does not normally venture onto. Perhaps it is heading to Westall for whatever reason. Moving over the bridge to Osborne Street, you can see that they have done some tree planting on the nature strip here too. Also visible is the flashy emergency egress building, whose doors happened to be open when I was walking past. You can just make out a lift, which will hopefully not have to be used too much. Let's now move on to Anzac. Anzac is not yet finished, but I don't think it's too far away. Here is the progress on the Albert Road entrance. Although there is still a lot of construction materials strewn about the place, I think most of the work here is done. The canopy looks all but finished, and all the glass has been installed around the entrance, sheltering it. They have even put signs in. Most of the current work here is to reinstate the South African Soldiers Memorial, which was moved away during earlier construction works. Now on the tram platforms, we can peek through into the main St Kilda Road entrance through the hoardings. Clearly, once again, nearly everything is ready to go. I think what is holding up major construction finishing here is more to do with the South African Soldiers Memorial and the Domain Road reinstatement works, rather than the interior of the station itself, although it is hard to tell how much there is to do inside. Finally, let me talk about what I think is the most interesting bit. In previous videos here, I've speculated that the Domain Road tram will be reinstated, which was closed to accommodate the works. It was uncertain in the past, but it is all but certain now, although there is still no official word. Here is the evidence I have. Firstly, they went to all the effort to build this tram junction here with clear room for trams turning into Domain Road. Secondly, they are leaving the tram tracks in while reinstating Domain Road, as you can see here. And lastly, they are unambiguously putting in a new tram stop here outside Melbourne Grammar. I think they've committed far too many funds for this not to reopen. They have had several stages at which they could pull the pin, and they have clearly rejected every chance to do that. So as far as I'm concerned, the Domain Road trams will be returning. I eagerly await more information, such as whether they will also be keeping the Toorak Road deviation tracks. Adjacent to Domain Road is the Sir Edmund Herring Oval, which is also beginning its reinstatement phase, having been used during construction to store materials and house staff facilities. Okay, on to Town Hall now. Last time, I couldn't show you a lot because, well, there wasn't a lot to show. This time, I also have a similar predicament, but I'll do what I can. Town Hall is the least progressed construction site because it was where they removed the tunnel boring machines. It was also quite hidden, making use of what few bits of prime real estate the government could get their hands on in the area. Let's start first with the City Square construction site. Since the last time I was here, the surface level concrete slab has been completed, where the square will be reinstated as shown in this concept image. Most of the current works are still focused on what is below it, being this passenger concourse. You can see this crane busy at work from when I was there, lowering something down. Here are some photos of progress on the concourse from the Big Build website. Now onto the other side of Swanston Street and closer towards Flinders Street Station, we see the Flinders Quarter site. There is currently a pedestrian closure on the western footpath, accommodating the removal of these overhead site offices, the installation of an underground stormwater reuse tank, and most importantly, the construction of the above-ground station entrance. I'm hoping that by the time the footpath reopens in September, there will be a lot more to see here. Moving around to the Flinders Street side of the Flinders Quarter site, and we see that plenty of construction is going on, although it is difficult to distinguish what exactly they are constructing. It may be a combination of the station entrance and the overstation development on the site. Speaking of, images have been released of the overstation development, which will be a modest 9-storey mixed-use building, respecting the far more prominent landmarks in the area. Notice that the development not only occurs to the right of Young & Jackson's Hotel on Swanston Street, but also to its left on Flinders Street, making use of all of the Flinders Quarter site. While we're here, the De Grey Street subway entrance doesn't really look any different to last time from any of the publicly accessible angles, including within Flinders Street Station itself. The subway will reportedly reopen at some point this year, but we do not yet know when. This photo from the Big Build website is a slight improvement on what I could get, showing what the lifts look like from inside the hoardings at Flinders Street Station. Finally, there is the Federation Square site. They are still excavating the escalator shaft here, which is why the shed is still here in attenuating the noise. Again, we do not yet know when this shed will be removed. Let's now head up Swanston Street to State Library Station. We begin here at Melbourne Central, where nothing has changed at the station concourse, with the same informative diagrams being up as last time. However, once we go outside the station onto La Trobe Street, we see that quite a lot of progress has been made on both the station entrance and the overstation development. I think the pink pylons do a really good job of brightening up the area, although I would have loved light blue pylons to symbolise the light blue line that will run through the Metro Tunnel. Like at Town Hall, we have some concept images of the State Library Exchange building, which is what the overstation development will be called. To me, it looks like books on a bookshelf, which is a nice nod to its namesake. Nothing too much has changed on a Beckett Street since last time in terms of what is publicly visible, with a huge shed still remaining. Underneath all this, they are constructing lower station passenger areas and operational rooms, whatever that means. Moving further north, we see much more noticeable changes. Last time I was here, they were still demolishing the Western Franklin Street shed. Now, not only have they finished demolishing the western shed, but they have also demolished the eastern one. Starting on the western side, we can see that an ancillary building, the same from last time, is there. I think the remaining works are to do with building other ancillary buildings, as there is unfortunately not going to be a station entrance on this side of the road. Moving across to the eastern side now, and it is clear that the site is abuzz with construction activity. There is a concrete slab above the site, which is a good sign. I think this building on the left is the station entrance, but it is difficult to tell. Here are some other angles of the site. Let's now head to the next site, Parkville, and there is plenty for me to show you here. The last time I was here, there were heaps of above-ground reinstatement works taking place, especially on the road and what is now the bus stops. Now, Grattan Street has reopened to car traffic. Grattan Street used to have 2 lanes in each direction, but it is now much narrower to accommodate more space for pedestrian and bike traffic, which I think is very sensible. It mightn't look it in these shots, but this area is full of pedestrians during university semesters, and the amount of pedestrians will surely significantly increase once buses start using Grattan Street again, and indeed once the station opens. Speaking of buses, based on the bus stops present, I can report to you the bus changes, at least in the short term. It looks like everything is largely reverting back to how it was before Metro Tunnel works. That means that the 401, 402, 403, 505 and 546 buses will all be returning to Grattan Street and using some of the various bus bays along here. Passenger information displays have been provided, which will hopefully show a combination of scheduled bus and train services. It seems like it will be a well-functioning bus-to-train interchange. All these buses are to be rerouted back onto Grattan Street in July, according to the government. Since the PTV website says until the 13th of July 2024 in terms of the deviations for all the routes I listed, I'm taking that to mean that buses will start serving the Grattan Street stops on the 14th of July. These routes will likely continue to operate, serving Grattan Street until the Metro Tunnel opens. What happens then is anyone's guess. I think it would be sensible for the government to consider reallocating resources and redesigning the bus routes. If I was in charge, I would scrap the 403 entirely. It is an express from Footscray to Melbourne Uni and is made redundant by the Metro Tunnel. I would also scrap the 401. Its only use post-tunnel opening is to Craigieburn and Upfield line passengers, which isn't really enough to justify such a high level of frequency. I would use some of the spare buses to boost service levels of the 402 so that it could run every 5 minutes. Anyway, of course, I'm not in charge, but the takeaway is that the planners should reallocate bus-related resources once the tunnel opens so that they are optimised. On to the rest of Parkville now. University Square is nearly completely open now. The only bit that's closed is this site around this chiller plant and retail building, which is gradually progressing. Back onto Grattan Street, this is a mysterious lift that doesn't seem to appear on any of the plans. I think that it might be a staff-only lift to access the back rooms, but we'll see when it opens, I guess. Please let me know in the comments if you know anything more about it. These skylights, which will help to illuminate the concourse, are no longer behind fences and are out in the open. You can actually look down into the concourse from them, although it is quite difficult to do this and even more difficult to film it because of the multiple layers of perforated metal. This was the best I could do using my dodgy phone camera. Those things covered in what looks like foil are the Mikey barriers. You might just be able to make out one of the Parkville station signs above it. Here's a shot from another skylight. On the right, you can just about see what looks like a customer service window. Finally, this shot shows you the escalators leading down to the platform level from the concourse. If you want to come and try and see down for yourself, you can. I was, however, told to get down off the skylights by one staff member as apparently the glass above it may not take my weight. I'm a bit skeptical though, because they didn't put any warnings not to climb up on top or make any effort to block off the skylights. On another day, a whole group of staff passed me and not one raised an issue. It is much easier to look down through the main station entrance, where the escalators have already been installed. You can also see the Vernal Glade artwork, which already looks wonderful. Here are some more shots of the concourse. You can again see the escalators leading down to the platforms in this one. Not only have they reopened Grattan Street, but they have all but finished a lot of the planting that they set out to do. It's amazing how much greenery instantly makes an area feel less like a concrete jungle and more like a livable space. The next station entrance I want to show you is here, on the eastern side of Royal Parade. It looks just about finished too. I'm not sure what this PID is displaying though. Next to it is this ancillary building, which is a station escape and ventilation building, according to the development plan. Notice the characteristic Metro Tunnel legacy branding that lines this building, those yellow M's. These will be visible throughout the various stations. These are the lifts for this entrance. Crossing Royal Parade, we get to the western entrance. Again, it's really close to being finished. They just have to do small things like putting up the passenger information signs. Before we head to the last entrance, let's check out the open Grattan Street intersection. Notice that it has been very well spaced out so that there is ample room for bikes to traverse it safely. Here is the last entrance, outside the hospital and the cancer centre. It's the same story here. It's nearly done, with only a few very minor finishing touches needed to fully complete it. The bus stops are also here for the 401, 402 and 403 buses, which will return to calling in here instead of on the other side of Flemington Road on Reckland Street as they have been doing during major construction. Major construction in Parkville was finished according to the government. Again, I can't really tell you what it's like on the inside, but the progress here on the outside in 3 months is just incredible. I highly recommend coming down to Parkville yourself to check out the changes, although maybe don't climb on the skylights just in case. On to the last station now, which is Arden. Major construction had already wrapped up at Arden before the last time I came here, so there isn't exactly heaps of new progress for me to show you. The most noticeable thing is that they have started installing Arden's characteristic artwork, which I'm a big fan of. I think Arden risked being a bit of a tacky behemoth of a station. This artwork helps to balance things out a bit, on what could have otherwise been a very grey entrance. Looking inside the station, we see that there are plenty of Caulfield services running, and running at quite a high frequency. Let's hope that we actually get that sort of a frequency once the tunnel opens. It doesn't look like there is too much of a rush to get the retail spaces ready, if that is what all these rooms around the place are for. Here are some more shots around the broader construction site. I want to emphasise how empty this all is. I was there in the middle of the day and I saw more trucks than people. It will be interesting looking back on this video in 10 or 20 years' time, once the area is completely transformed into a predominantly residential one. Hopefully it won't be a windy concrete jungle like Docklands. The final thing I want to note is that it seems like a lot of the temporary Metro Tunnel workers' buildings are still here, and my guess is that they'll stay until it isn't long before opening. I have no idea what these temporary buildings are specifically used for. I guess the conclusion here is that they aren't in much of a hurry to pack up at the Arden construction site, even if there isn't much work being done on the station anymore. The last site in this video is the Western Portal in South Kensington. I don't think much has changed here at all since last time. Here is the view from a Sunbury-bound train. There are easily removable bolts across the tracks to facilitate testing. Now here's the view from a city-bound train. You might notice that there is already quite a lot of graffiti around this decline structure, which is unfortunate, but sort of inevitable. Finally, this is the decline structure from the Childers Street gate. Like at the Eastern Portal, I think work might well be essentially completely done here. It really doesn't look like there is anything really happening here, or indeed that there is anything left to do. This video has shown you the above ground progress at each of the 7 main construction sites for the Metro Tunnel, so from this you should be able to make your own conclusions about the progress of the tunnel. My interpretation is that when it opens will mostly come down to how long Town Hall takes. Clearly, Arden and Parkville are all but done. Anzac is really close to being done. State Library definitely feels well progressed, even though it is a long way behind Anzac. Town Hall though just seems like it is the least progressed, as there is no obvious sign yet of any of the entrances, especially in that they're still excavating the escalator shaft in Fed Square. According to a recent report by the Victorian Auditor-General's Office, the Metro Tunnel will require more funding to finish and will not meet its internal plan to open in September of this year. I think from this video it is quite obvious that it will not be opening this year anyway. There is still heaps of work to be done. That report says that the new internal completion date is June of 2025, which does seem pretty realistic. I did overhear a staff conversation where a guy was pretty surprised that this was the opening date reported, as he thought that it was to be opened in September of 2025. So take what you want from that information, perhaps it could be even longer. Nevertheless, while the train services are still a while away, we do have some other things to look forward to before then. Obviously, Grattan Street has already reopened and the buses will return to it soon. Domain Road, near Anzac, will probably reopen before the tunnel opens, even if this hasn't yet been announced. I'm not sure when the trams will resume running on it though. Construction is also set to begin soon on the Swanston and Victoria Street tram changes, which will see these tracks here replaced with a pocket park, and the Victoria Street tram line reactivated between Elizabeth and Swanston Street, with a new turn here. Anyway, that is all I have to say about the project at this time. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it greatly that you've stuck around all the way to this point in the video. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything to do with the progress of this project. I'll see you all next time.